Hey guys, Mochi here, and we're back with the Steel Rebellion Take 2 Draft Infographic update. So for this video, I'm just going to cover the neutral cards released in Steel Rebellion. I know the title says Swordcraft, but that'll be the next video. The main reason I'm doing this is because generally in the past videos, I just cover the neutral cards in every single video, and there weren't too many changes between them, between each craft. So rather than just rehash the same thing in 10 or 15 minutes at the end of each video, I just cover them all in a single video, and then I can just address key differences between the crafts in each of the cards. So starting off with the Technolord, it's an 8 play point 5/5. It's got an accelerate spell front side, or you can always play it as the 8 play point follower, of course. So looking at the front side first of just accelerate 3, you get 1 ping per Machina follower that died during the match. And the main problem with this is just the amount of Machina followers you can draft. The neutral picks, while it might be boosted now, it won't be in the future. So just getting your Mechwing Angels, your Robo-Goblins, sometimes that can be inconsistent depending on the deck. You only get 4 neutral picks, of course. And just getting Machina cards in your bronze and silver picks, where those are the most plentiful in your draft. The problem with that is just how many are in the pool. Most crafts only have 1 or 2, and some of them aren't as playable or as draftable. You won't want to draft multiples of some of them as well. So getting a lot of things, sometimes maybe some crafts have ways to spawn multiple Machina followers, but mainly just getting this to 3 or 4 isn't really likely. Sometimes this will be useful, but that's not really the main reason you're drafting it. You're drafting this to be an 8 play point 5/5 that resurrects the strongest Machina thing that died the match. And similar to the problem of just drafting a lot of Machina followers, the Machina followers you get, they might be in the silver and bronze slot, and while some of them might be strong or some of them might be big, you still have to rely on something like draw order, because even if you get some really good premium targets to get off it, 5/5 spawn anything that's 2/2 or higher is good enough. It's split body, it's 5/5 that's decent enough statted for a neutral drop. So you're definitely happy just generating any body, but the fact that this can whiff, you actually have to have a Machina follower that died. If you have bad draw order, or you're forced to play something like you play the Technolord before your Machina followers for whatever reason, or just sometimes it doesn't line up where you actually draw your Machina followers at all. You just have a dead 8 play point play in your hand, because every craft can basically draft premium or good enough 8 to 10 drops in their curve as sort of late game finishers, as either other neutrals or just premium cards in their high rarity or high play point slots that you don't really have to afford just risking just drafting a Technolord and having it either whiff because you didn't draft good enough targets, or whiff because you got something really bad out of it, or just bad draw order. So for that reason, it'll be here for most of the cases. Sometimes depending on your draft, maybe you draft a bunch of premium Machina cards to resurrect off it, or it just lines up that you can either make the accelerate work really well, or just have a high density Machina deck. Then sometimes you might draft it higher, but for the most part, it's going to end up here. So the Odin. Looking at the invocation first, it's got a neat tag. If you evoke 6 times in a game, though, you should win, especially in a Take-Two game. Mainly, you have to rely on sort of neutral Evo synergies, or just having infinite Evos, maybe something like Runecraft. But again, if you have 6 Evos that happen in a game, you should be winning the game anyway. So looking at it as the card standalone, 7 play point 4/3 Storm, that's decent enough as like Storm potential. But the main thing is it has free trades, basically. Same thing as sort of the Rackham Claws. It pings based on its attack, so it can ping for 4 or it can ping for 6 if you really need to evo it for it. But just getting in free value, like 7 play point 4/3 that hits in, rushes in if you don't hit face, and then trades with something for free is good enough. And then having it as basic Storm potential in your deck, Storm potential in the hand, is good enough where it can be either, again, reach, or it can be value trading. So flexible enough, it'll be here or here, depending on how much of the crafts values this sort of effect. Some crafts might be very strained on 7 drops. Some crafts might actually have a lot of 7 drops to pick that they might value this a lot lower. But the card's definitely good enough, and you should be reasonably happy to see it in your golden legendary picks. So moving on to the actual like neutral picks, we got the Heaven's Gate. I was pretty lenient on this card at first, but realistically it belongs here. It's sort of like a Phoenix Roost for neutral, but not exactly. So you can get the Invocation from this, so maybe you can get this from the deck for free, but the main effect isn't very good. But looking at it for just the Invocation, the problem with this is similar to something like City of Gold in Havencraft, where if you actually draw this card, then you actually have to play it for the cost, and you actually don't get the benefit of invocating it from the deck. So that's like sort of a downside for these sort of invocation cards. Regardless, you have to commit 5 play points to sort of do nothing card. And the do nothing is very, very bad in this case, because you actually give your opponent an advantage as well. This actually benefits your opponent, so they subtract 3 or 10 from one of their cards as well, depending on whether they have dupes or not. And them having no dupes and you having no dupes, it's around the same chance. But basically, you don't draft a no dupe deck in order to make a Heaven's Gate better. Maybe for a Jerry, but not for a Heaven's Gate. So the fact that this mainly just discounts for 3 most of the time, and sometimes you might get the 10, but you can still hit 2 or 3 drops. It's still not worth playing because it brings you down a ton on tempo. It's 5 play point, do nothing, and then actually gives your opponent 3 play points, or 2/3 if they discount something really low, worth of tempo. So they should be able to snowball you from there, and you should lose the game from that. And another minor nitpick is this can actually discount the same thing multiple times. So if you have something like really small and you can't play, or I guess you'd play that always, but if you had something big and you couldn't play it and this discounted the same thing again, then sometimes that can be bad as well. All right, moving on. Like, this will definitely be the worst neutral pick you can pick for a very long time, barring something else that comes into the pool. So the Catherine. So this thing, you'll actually see this and this jump between each specific craft. Depending on how much of deck is aggressive or defensive, these two should switch, because the main problem with this card is it's a 6.44 that may or may not do nothing, depending on how much your craft values this. Depending on, if you're an aggressive deck, then healing doesn't matter as much. The more defensive your deck is, the more you may or may not value the healing. Because even as defensive decks, you have good options to take a 6-drop. So you've got the Angel and you got Catalina. So those are just 4/4s that do something else. So the heal is good for like getting you out of reach potential. Sometimes the crafts might not actually have a healing option, or they might not care that much about healing options because their control is so good. So sometimes this tag actually does nothing. But just having this as just a top deck in your deck to randomly heal you off like Storm Potential Lethals or something may or may not be worth something considering, or even just dodging an Armored Troll. Depending on your craft, you might actually not want an Armored Troll, so just drafting this over the Armored Troll may or may not be a way to go, but it will end up here, depending on how aggressive / defensive your deck is. So the Robo-Goblin, this is sort of the namesake Machina card and basically all the Machina decks in Constructed, but it's like average in Take-Two. Depending on how much you care about the repair mode, you may or may not draft it higher in this expansion. There's like the minor synergies with like healing, spell boost, or like having a discard fodder for like whatever crafts that care about that. But for the most part, you're just getting a Machina tag card into your hand. And that can be good depending on the synergy with Machina cards. Some crafts actually care about having Machina cards in your hand. And additionally, you can always use this as a sort of a healing. You can always heal face, you can heal a follower, and that heals for 1. And you can always use this as sort of like a mini Rakam. So how do you use that? Assuming, like, let's pretend this fanfared and give you a repair mode. This could crash in as a 4/4, kill like a 3/4, and then you could heal with the repair mode. The repair mode actually heals for 3 onto Machina followers. So if you have this repair mode in hand, you could heal something like a 4/1 into like a 4/4 again. Well, obviously it doesn't do that because it lasts words to get the repair mode back, but that's just an example. And you can use the repair mode decently to like heal off like 1 damage regardless, and sometimes 1 damage to a follower to like dodge something like a 3 play point removal. Skillfully use it, something like that. And you can always keep it in hand for Machina synergies later / discard random synergies later. So you'll value it here, but some decks may or may not want to draft it. You can even draft it higher than like regular 2-drops if you're trying to draft like a high density Machina deck, or just lines up that you really want Machinas in your deck, depending on the synergy you have in that specific craft / draft. So moving on to the Aldous, this is sort of like a 4 play point Lucifer. It's got sort of an Evo split clause where it either heals or deals damage. You can't control this, unfortunately, so same thing if you are like down on life and you really want to heal, but you have to Evo. There's no choice, you still got to Evo. But for the most part, you actually want the damage more often than not. This ends up being better if it Evos. So, but it's freebie on top of a Goliath body. Just last words, heal or deal damage to the opponent's face, and that's good enough for a filler 4-drop that you'll take if you don't have enough good / regular standalone 4-drops. So moving on to the Heinecker, this card's very strong. It's a 2 play point 2/2. It's got sort of the Marionette Lad clause where you can actually just enhance this for 5, but even if you evo this as like a 2 play point play, it'll actually still gain the last words. So regardless, this will always ping for 1, or can always ping for 1, 2, 3, 3+. So this is super premium. Just getting a free 5 play point 4/4 rush, just crash into like Goliath sized bodies and live, of course, and then have a ping 1 or ping 2 attached for it. It's super premium. Again, you can just split evo it as well and just get it as a 2 play.44 Evo, and then it just has a free ping attached. All that super premium, flexible Evo, stuff like that, and free Evo as well. So you'll definitely pick it very highly. It's probably the best 2-drop you can pick in the neutral, and even some regular bronze/silver picks for most crafts. So you'll definitely pick it very highly. Same thing with Jafner. This thing interacts super favorably with basically the format at the moment, because just Evo 2-drops. You can play the Evo specific 2-drop and you can just Evo it. Even if you don't get their specific bonus, you'll get it off the Jafner Evoing. So this will, like, the 2-drop will Evo, and then this will Evo, and then you'll actually get the proc off it. So it interacts favorably with the Evo-specific 2-drops that every craft's getting, and just good stuff in general. You can Evo any 2-drop or 3-drop alongside it, and then this gives a free sort of Rackham ping. This actually pings on the opponent's turn, so it's very relevant. It trades like a 5/2. So if the opponent doesn't have an Evo ping to sort of contest this card, it's very premium on board. It just trades with everything super well, and for the most part, you'll have an evolved body, and then you'll have this body, so the opponent has to deal with both of those as well. So definitely a very premium option. It just allows you to cheat on Evos, get a very premium double Evo turn, and you can definitely snowball a game from there. So last up, we got the Mechwing Angel, and I guess we can talk about the Steelclad Minotaur as well, because this is technically a new addition from Altar Sphere. So the Steelclad Minotaur, it got better just because Divine Retribution's gone. It's actually super hard to remove for some crafts now. If they don't have the hard removal that's craft specific, this might stay on board and soak a bunch of followers. It might soak a bunch of removal as well and actually not die. So again, premium, just gain a bunch of stats when being attacked, and you can always use it and accelerate 2 Minotaurs, and basically a conjure twosome for 4. A lot of crafts actually appreciate just having that flexible option. It's double wards, and you can always play it as a 7 play.65 ward that's equally as premium. Similarly to the Mechwing Angel, it'll supply your Oathless Knights for 2. A lot of crafts actually would appreciate just having Oathless Knights as just flexible curving out. They can play a 3 or 4 drop Evo in and just drop Assembly Droids alongside it and just have a snowball board from there. Or they can always save it as an 8 premium play, 6/6 board, and then summon 2 1/1s. It's like as good as it can get for sort of like a neutral. It's obviously worse, but like a neutral Poseidon. But 6/6 1/1 split body. It's very good, and it gives you Machina tags as well, which is relevant this expansion and going into the further expansions for like cards that matter or drafts that matter. So that basically wraps up for the neutral cards, and I'll see you guys in the Swordcraft video.